them were. But Worsley is largely indifferent to his other shipmates. There was an artist aboard, said to have come to paint the extraordinary polar seascapes, and above all colours, but he is mentioned only once, when he finished off the caulking of a boat with his oil paints and a little seal's blood. Much the same applies to the medical men and the naturalist, although they must have messed with him. Upon the whole, therefore, his fellow men, apart from Shackleton and a few of the hands, did not interest him much. What he concentrated upon with the closest and most intelligent perception was the sea in all its countless forms, the snow, the ice, the currents, and the truly appalling winds of those latitudes, far below the roaring 40s of evil reputation. He is a sailor through and through, very highly skilled in his calling and often remarkably successful in describing various aspects of it. He possessed a highly developed aesthetic sense, and he was deeply moved by the extraordinary beauty of polar colour, its clarity, its prismatic brilliance in the more than frozen air, the unimaginable beauties of the ice, of tumbled, shattered pack ice, and of majestic bergs, large as half the county. The Endurance's sides did indeed prevent the ice from crushing her by sideways pressure, as so many whalers have been crushed, and even men of war. But if a steel wedge is driven between two prodigious blocks of ice, and the lateral pressure mounts to some millions of tons, the wedge is likely to be squeezed out. This is what happened to Endurance. She rose to the surface of the ice and stood there almost upon her keel, with a heavy list to port. Blizzards and very strong winds were an everyday occurrence, and presently she fell right over with a perfectly enormous crash, terrifying the huskies, the powerful northern dogs that were to pull the sledges. With infinite toil they righted her. There were only 29 of them, including Shackleton, but she settled in the water and leaked so cruelly that they had to pump for 72 hours without a pause. And when they had her really dry, the winds and currents of the Weddell Sea converged from 3 directions, driving the massive pack-ice upon her. 2 great floes, one on each side, held her fast. A third struck her stern, tearing off her rudder and mortally wounding her keel. The ship's timer ends opened, water poured into her. They had time to unload some of the stores, the sledge dogs and the boats onto the floe. Then, when the pack-ice round her loosened, she went down. It is not for an introducer to enumerate the almost incredible hardships they endured in those ice-coated boats over so immense an extent of ocean, nor to speak of the prodigious courage with which they bore them. But it may properly be said that after a great variety of disasters, most of the people were landed on Elephant Island, as dismal a place as can well be imagined, while the stronger men took the remaining boat, the James Caird, to South Georgia, where they landed where they could and walked the rest of the way to the whaling station over country little more hospitable than the moon, except for the albatross chicks, 14 pounds apiece, and a 7-foot sea elephant. Yet throughout this boat voyage, or rather these boat voyages, Worsley was continually at Shackleton's side, and he, in this long, very highly detailed book, is the man to write about him. Through the kindness of the Uruguayans and Chileans, they did get back to England. The unfortunate seamen left on Elephant Island were, after several attempts, taken off, and all hands were pretty well received at home in April 1917. After the necessarily abbreviated celebrations, the war was nearing its climax, Worsley was given command of a Q-boat, a vessel designed to lure, deceive, and destroy submarines, and she did indeed sink the German U-23, whereupon Worsley was appointed to another craft in the Mediterranean. Somewhat later, he and Shackleton met in London, and Shackleton asked him to go to North Russia. Shackleton's word obviously carried great weight, for Worsley was lent to the War Office. They reached Murmansk in October 1918, where Shackleton also held an important army appointment on the Murmansk front. They carried out some dashing, valuable forays in search of intelligence behind the Russian lines, interesting in themselves, but in a wholly different key from the rest of the book.